Tuesday, Northland to Waitomo, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty and Taupo. Cloudy periods today, isolated showers till evening. Rain developing in the far north tonight and spreading south tomorrow, heavy at times. Taranaki and Taumarunui to Manawatu, including Taihape, partly cloudy. Isolated showers clearing this evening. Rain spreading from the north tomorrow evening. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, fine today. High cloud increasing tomorrow. Rain developing in the evening. Kapiti, Wellington and Wairarapa, also Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, generally fine. A few cloudy periods tomorrow. Buller and Westland, a few showers today. Fine spells tomorrow. Otago, Southland and Fiordland. Scattered showers becoming confined to Fiordland and the south coast this afternoon. Fine spells developing elsewhere. Chatham Islands, fine spells. The odd shower is possible. Nearly 1:06. News and weather again at 2.
I believe you are a star, 'cause you beam above my head.
Good afternoon. We're going back to 2001 today with our great New Zealand album, Dimmer, the band name of Shane Carter, formerly of Straight Jacket Fitz, who have been playing music under that name since 1994. And today we're doing this album, I Believe You're a Star, which also features a track with Beck Runga on backing vocals. Welcome along. It's Monday Arvo, Jesse Mulligan with you, and plenty to do. We had New Zealand Live on Friday with Millie Tabak and the Milltones. We ran out of time for their fifth song, so I'm going to play it for you in just a moment, a live version of Liven Up the Night. And then some pretty interesting research out of the University of Otago in collaboration with the Kimihora Health and Research Clinic. There is a particular disease which affects Māori, and they have come up with some new guidelines which have been adopted around the world to save more Māori lives by detecting this earlier. I'll have more on that with Professor Parry Guilford, who led up the team. We're expecting an announcement from the Prime Minister on a so-called Pacific Island bubble. Once we get that, we'll get a response from Dr. Colin Tukuitonga from Auckland University's Medical and Health Sciences. He's the Associate Dean of Auckland University's Medical and Health Science. He is someone who has been pushing for this bubble for a little while, although last time we spoke to him, he was a little less certain about things. So we'll hear from the Prime Minister and then we'll get his response. And then we'll speak with someone nominated in the Matariki Awards. Ngā Whetū o Matariki. It's the fifth year of these awards that recognise outstanding Māori achievement and celebrate contributions made. And this Saturday night, Chelsea Winstanley will be up for the Te Waipuna Ārangi Award. That's for arts and entertainment. So she'll join me to talk about how she's feeling about it and some of what she's been up to lately. Great album today, Dimmer, I Believe You're a Star. Then after 2, Caitlin Cherry has been watching TV, The Umbrella Academy on Netflix. Some thoughts on Seinfeld, watching that all these years later. Australian Ninja Warrior, and shout out to Country Calendar today. In Black Sheep, William Ray is looking at Stuart Smith, who is infamous among freshwater scientists and environmentalists. See if you can guess why. And then our Monday expert is Dorothy Wade, who has a new book called Simply Parenting from 12 Weeks to 12 Months. Do you have a question about a baby that size? I'm just out of that range. My boy Scout is 16 months, but I'll still be cornering her during the news to ask her a few things. She's famous for her ability to work out eating and sleeping problems for young bubbers. So if you have a question about a baby in that age group, 12 weeks to 12 months, text it through to me to 2101. Dorothy's our expert from about 20 minutes to 3 up until the top of the hour. After 3, Melissa Davey is a journalist from Australia. She's Bureau Chief of Guardian Australia in Melbourne. And she's one of the only journalists to cover every twist and turn in the Cardinal George Pell case. So she was there for the hearings and the trials and the mistrials, and then eventually a Royal Commission of Inquiry. She'll tell us what that experience was like and what she learnt. And then it's Voices with Kadambari Gladding, who's meeting 2 chefs, helping further the cause of an Auckland-based food pop-up called Everybody Eats. Looking forward to that. Just ahead of Wallace Chapman and the pre-panel. 2101 if you'd like to get in touch, or you can email me to jesse@rnz.co.nz. We're on Facebook and we're on Twitter too. It was a real treat having Millie Taback and the Milltones in over the weekend. Their new album came out on Friday and has been positively reviewed. Millie has a really beautiful, distinctive voice, and we got 4 songs, then ran out of time, so I'm happy to get the 5th one on for you now. This is Millie with the Milltones performing live in the studio next door. And will probably sound quite a bit like it does on the album, because she was telling me that most of the album was recorded in that way. All of the band playing together at once and just a bit of vocal overdubbing at the end. So what it's called, overdubbing, retakes. So this is her with her 7-piece band, sound engineering by RNZ Andre Upston. This is Liven Up the Night.
Is this street dark enough? I'm sure we're all alone. Heels pointy, pretty, and you can't be who you want. Living up the night, living up the night. I'm on fire on the waves. Love watching you twist my lips as I pull you slip above your waist. It's so simple, I'll take it slow. Tell me what you want. It's so simple, I'll take it slow. Tell me what you want. Go away, baby. And you can't be who you want. You can find refuge in my bedsit. I know it's what you need. Let you skip my collection. Play your favorite CD. Open up that door, you feel the breeze against your coat. Hours they feel like minutes. Did it taste better than you had known? It's so simple, I'll take it slow. Tell me what you want. It's so simple, I'll take it slow. Tell me what you want. That it's what you need. That's alright. I know that it's what you need. That's alright. It's so simple. Tell me what you want. 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 Oh no.
RNZ National, big sound from a big band. It's Millie Taback and the Milltones, and that was the track we missed out on Friday afternoon. It's called Liven Up the Night, right on 1:15. Research teams are hoping that by getting changes to international clinical guidelines and their testing criteria, that they'll save more Māori lives. The University of Otago and the Kimihora Health and Research Clinic have worked together to develop a genetic test which can identify a gene mutation that causes stomach cancer, predominantly in Māori. To tell us more, I'm joined by Professor Parry Guilford, who's led the Otago team. Hello there.
Yeah, tēnā koe, Jesse.
Yeah, kia ora. Tell us about, first of all, this is an inherited gene, and does it occur more in Māori than in non-Māori populations?
Yeah, that's right. It seems to occur at about a 5 times higher rate in Māori populations than non-Māori populations.
Why?
We don't know for sure, Jesse. We have a theory linked to the fact that perhaps the gene back in pre-European times may have actually had some kind of advantage against other types of disease, such as infectious diseases, but we're really only speculating on that idea.
Okay, and what does the gene do when you have it?
Afternoon, everyone. I'll start with some opening comments, just reporting progress on the work that both the New Zealand Government and Cook Island Administration are doing regarding the opening of travel between New Zealand and the Cook Islands. Today, Cabinet considered the draft text that is being worked on via officials, which will become the basis of an agreement for travel between the Cook Islands and New Zealand. That draft text is near conclusion. The next phase will be the verification phase. That is where we have officials on both sides who undertake work on the ground to assure ourselves that we're meeting the expectations on both sides. Our expectation at this stage is that we will have travel between officials undertaking that verification work within about the next 10 days. The third phase, of course, will then be final details, confirmation of advice from the Director General and confirmation of Cabinet and the Government of the Cook Islands confirming travel beyond that. Whilst we haven't put a time frame around the reopening at this stage, our expectation is that it would be in place before the end of the year. We haven't wanted to give dates beyond that while we're still undertaking that verification work, and that's on both sides, both for the Cook Islands and for New Zealand. One thing to keep in mind, there's been a lot of focus on the aviation side of the border, making sure that we have separation at any of the airports that would be utilised, separate transit and so on. Another factor is the maritime border. Of course, both New Zealand and the Cook Islands do have people coming and going through either pleasure crafts or, of course, through cargo. We do need to assure both sides that the rigour that we apply from the aviation side is being applied at the maritime border as well. So that is something that will be a significant part of the verification process that we expect officials to undertake. So that's a progress update. Considerable work has gone on to getting us to this point. And of course, with that draft text almost agreed, that means now that we have agreement over who would be eligible, how it would operationally work, but now we just need to assure ourselves of the measures on the ground. So essentially, those who would legally be able to be in New Zealand would be eligible, but of course beyond New Zealand passport holders and so on, then it would be a matter of meeting the Cook Islands visa requirements. So essentially those who are here would be eligible, but if they're not New Zealand citizens, they may need to go through an extra stage. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that's why I think these progress updates are so important. I expect that we'll be getting another update in the next 2 weeks on progress. I expect that in roughly the next 10 days or so that we will have people undertaking that on-the-ground verification process. So we are giving those milestones just to keep people up to date with the work that's being done. It is not a simple exercise, and it is one where we are exercising that caution. The last thing anyone wants is to reopen travel only to have it closed down because it hasn't been done properly. No, that at this stage is not the way that quarantine-free travel is looking to work, but we are looking at, for instance, health checks at the border and declarations at the border as part of that additional layer of assurance. But of course, the whole point of establishing this regime is the assurance that both the Cook Islands and New Zealand are considered to be COVID-free, but that doesn't mean we won't have extra stages of assurance. Ben. And then I'll come back. At this stage, we are entirely focused on realm countries. So, of course, that includes the Cook Islands, Niue, Tokelau being in a different set of circumstances as the only access route is via Samoa. Niue at present is still waiting for them to be ready. At this stage, though, we are progressing with the Cooks, but we have not looked beyond that. We've prioritised the realm because of our special relationship and because of the fact that these are, of course, New Zealand passport holders. This is undoubtedly one of the likely consequences, but of course, as a cabinet, whilst we're very aware of that, it cannot be the basis of a decision for people with New Zealand passports to be able to travel or not. We have to base this on a public health decision, which is what we're doing. Sorry. Yeah, so we've, of course, you'll recall before when we had a regime where people were still coming in and isolating at home, or when we still had travel to the Pacific, we did include declarations of health checks, temperature checks. Those are the kinds of initiatives we're looking into at our border, just to give that extra layer of reassurance.
Given that it still could be some time away, prepared to send more financial aid to the Brown countries to help with that?
Again, that would all depend on a number of factors. Those are decisions ultimately that the Minister of Foreign Affairs engages in. We've said before the end of the year, but you'll hear from the timelines that I'm delivering, we are working studiously to get this ready, but we are going to make sure that it is based firmly on assurance from a framework that we feel that we can undertake this travel safely and that we don't run the risk of exporting or importing COVID. Well, obviously we have already been supporting the Cook Islands through this period. We are moving as quickly as we safely can on these arrangements, but I think it would be premature to base anything on timelines that have not yet been firmly established, but we're keeping up that dialogue with the Cook Islands administration. Jackson. Yeah, we are at present. We are very much focused on that travel with those COVID-free nations within the realm. We are still undertaking the work, the foundational work for the Trans-Tasman travel arrangements, but obviously that is going to be some time off. Yep. Oh, with the timeframes that we're working to, well, I'm essentially saying that my expectation is that it would be before the end of the year, but I don't want to set down timeframes that, for instance, might be unsettled by any of the verification work that happens with people on the ground on either side. But there's a number of different scenarios there. I don't want to set false expectations. I would rather give those timelines that we feel assured of at this point. We'll have a report back in 2 weeks. Expectation is people on the ground within the next 10 days. Craig, you had a question? Oh, we're working very closely, so they are aware of the decisions and discussions that are going to Cabinet, the outcome of those. So this is something that's been done in very close contact with the Cook Islands administration. I've spoken with Prime Minister Puna on more than one occasion about it. Oh, I have no doubt that there'll be those who will want very fast movement on these travel arrangements, but I feel a duty of responsibility on both sides to make sure that whatever we do, that we make sure it lasts and that it's safe. Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, that is not solely a decision that we have a role to play in. Our role is from a health perspective. So those airports that may be part of those arrangements will need to essentially have the sign-off from health that they can undertake quarantine-free travel safely. Then obviously airlines are playing a role in determining which airports are involved, but we will need to make sure that we're assured that it's safe. Gina? Oh, yes, sorry. So obviously we're between the arrangement, we are looking at those who have residency and permanent residency status. Otherwise, those in New Zealand, there'll be a wider group who, because they're in New Zealand, will be eligible, but they will need to meet the visa requirements of the Cook Islands. No, I haven't. And of course, we know the percentage of New Zealanders from memory roughly make up 60% of the tourism industry in the Cook Islands. Australia previously has made up a significant part as well. But of course, in this environment, it's very hard to assess what difference in people's travel habits we might see as a result of COVID. Gina, and then I'll come to you, so. I'll come to you then if you've still got a Cook's question. Oh, look, officials have been working on the ground, and of course, people will be asking for what timeframes we're working to. What I'm giving you is the progress update for now, what we expect to happen over the next couple of weeks. But preparations have been, as you would expect, happening with our airports to make sure that when we're in a position to open, that they are ready to, and that they've gone through their assessment with health authorities as well. The lab capacity there for the Cook Islands, they utilise our capacity, and so that is one of the issues. Of course, there is a slight delay therefore, and so one of the things that both is open to the cooks and looking at our arrangements to make sure they're satisfied, but also on our side is looking into those public health arrangements and assuring everyone that we've got in place what needs to be in place. Well, obviously it's delayed by the mere fact that there is a travel requirement. So that is something that we have to factor into our arrangements, and it is something we're conscious of. But at the same time, it means we also can assure ourselves of the arrangement because we work so closely together as well. Derek? There have. And so the Trans-Tasman bubble arrangements that we were working to created a framework that could be used with others. But we have said the realms, for obvious reasons, because of our relationship and of course their status, we were prioritised. We've talked about the Trans-Tasman arrangement really being important to us for similar reasons, but the framework we've created does open up other opportunities. But at this point, in such a fragile global environment, quarantine-free travel with others at this stage is not a current reality. All right. The way that I would characterise the approach from Cabinet at the moment is caution. We absolutely believe that we have a duty to make sure that we are investigating fully and making possible this arrangement, but we are moving very cautiously. We know what's at stake. It's not just an economy, it's also a health status as well. Okay? Okay, I'm not going to get into wider campaign policy at this point, but anything else on the bubble? Yeah. Sorry, what was that? I think there's a really good understanding, of course, within our own domestic tourism industry. It's highly beneficial to our domestic operators if we have still New Zealanders travelling and New Zealanders enjoying tourism here within New Zealand. But there's also at the same time absolute understanding that if all of the public health measures are in place, protecting New Zealand's tourism industry is not a reason to stop people with New Zealand passports being able to travel between the Cook Islands and New Zealand. Sorry, what? Well, obviously we have, in our COVID response, did recognise that there is a role to play there. That is why we've already increased main benefit rates by $25 a week. Okay, last question, Ben. I have no plans at this stage to do anything except campaign my heart out for the next 6 weeks, and I haven't thought anything beyond that. Thanks, everyone.